There's this old story of a rich man and a fisherman that I love. I'm not going to share the whole story with you, but the gist of it goes like this. There was a rich man that during the middle of the work week was walking down along the ocean near a pier to try to think about how to make more money and how to close his latest deal. And in the distance, there was a fisherman that was just casting his fishing line out into the ocean, trying to catch some fish for that day's dinner. And as he got closer to him, the rich man asked the fisherman, "What are you doing out here? It's a work day. How come you're fishing instead of working?" And the fisherman said, "Why would I want to do that?" And the rich man said, "Well, if you're out there working and making more money, you could buy a bigger house." And then the fisherman said, "And why would I want to do that?" And the rich man said, "Well, then you could buy a nicer car with even more money." And the fisherman said, "And why would I want to do that?" And then again, the rich man said, "Well, if you're out there and you're putting in 12 hours or 14 hours or 16 hours, then you can make even more and more, and maybe one day you're going to be able to buy a yacht." And the fisherman again said, "And why would I want to do that?" And a bit exasperated by this point in the conversation, the rich man says, "Well, if you work your whole life, many hours, and work very hard, then one day, even if it was in the middle of a work week, you'd be able to be sitting out here in the ocean, relaxing, enjoying the sun on your back, and not having a care in your life." And then the fisherman said, "And what do you think I'm doing right now?" You know, I think so many of us work so hard to try to find contentment and peace at some future time in life. And in my journeys here in the Philippines, I've really had to rethink, what does it mean to live a content life? If you are more interested in what that looks like in your own life, follow along. I have more to share with you in this episode. So here in the Philippines, like everywhere else, there's a lot of rich people, there's middle-class people, and there's a lot of people that really have nothing. And here, if you go to an average home, very different than a home in the US or Australia or England, they tend to be quite a bit smaller, and I gotta be honest, where I've lived here has even been very small, most of the time 25 to 40 square meters, and I've learned to live in a space that's really maybe 10% of the space that I lived at in the US. And when I look at those around me here, what I see is that they're contented with so much less in their life. Maybe there's not air conditioning, even if it's hot. Maybe they don't have as much variety when they go to the store and look for something to eat. Life here, for the most part, is a lot simple, depending on if you live in kind of a smaller country area called province areas here, or a big city. Your life may be a lot less complicated or more complicated, but on the whole, there's a lot of people here that inside of their hearts, inside of their minds, live a much more content life. And I'm still learning and failing in my quest to become more content like the people that I'm inspired by around me here in the Philippines. But there's a few things that I've learned here that I found helpful so far, and I hope that you'll find helpful as well. So one of the first things that I've noticed with people here that I think really helps with them living a contented life is being understanding. You know, life is not always perfect. And I think that for so much of my life, I want things to be perfect. I want things to go the way that I want. I want to not have any drama or things to go unexpectedly. What I find here is that things always go unexpectedly. Things are really challenging here, especially if you come from a Western perspective where you expect that things are going to go a certain way. People are going to show up on time, paperwork is going to be processed in a particular way, the people that you deal with are all going to have the same answer. If you go to the grocery market and you ask one person if they have strawberries in stock and they say no, that if you then ask the second person, is there strawberries in stock, they're not going to tell you yes. But those are the little things that happen here. Sometimes you have to ask 3 people the same question to get the one right answer. Is that a big deal? Well, when you come from California and you've lived in a fast-paced life, yeah, sometimes it feels like a big deal. But what I find here is that with the Filipinos around me, it's just not such a big deal. So I really need to look at myself and ask myself, what's more important? To be around people that are understanding, to be around people that feel content in their life, or to get the same answer or to have things done more efficiently. Sometimes I struggle with the answer to that, to be honest. But the more I look at the level of understanding that people around me have here, the more I know that understanding is the first step on the path to contentment in my life. Gotta love that wind. Sorry guys. The second thing that is really important when it comes to living a content life is acceptance. Sometimes things go in a way that you're not happy with, and so you might not accept that. And one of the things that was kind of a light bulb moment in my own life is that I had a hard time accepting things because in my mind, acceptance meant agreement. In other words, I felt that if I actually said that I accept this thing that is unacceptable, that I somehow agree that it's okay. It doesn't mean that at all though. Accepting means that even if you're not happy with it, because let's face it, you don't need to accept something if it's not actually a challenge, if there's not actually something to accept. So it's on the one hand acknowledging that something isn't right, but it's accepting that this is how things are. And when you accept things, you'll find that it's a lot easier to have a content life because you'll be able to not be fighting against it and instead accept it and move on and learn how to cope with it. A third area when it comes to living a content life is thankfulness. I find that even when I look back at 2020, and things haven't changed much here in 2021, even though it was such a challenging life, being locked down, having to wear masks and face shields here, it really was a very strict lockdown here in the Philippines, and that's why the numbers here stayed so low. But it also posed a lot of challenges. I was away from my family for a year now and counting when I plan to go back. It's impacted my business. There's been so many challenges in my life over the last year, but I find that when I take the time to be thankful, when I think about the new condo I was able to buy here, a new car, when I think about, more importantly, the new friendships that I have with a number of people that come to mind immediately, when I think of the laughter and the joy and the positive people around me, there's so much that I have to be thankful for. My health is okay. You know, there's so many things that if we just stop in our life to really think about what do we have to be thankful for in our life, it's going to be so much easier to feel content. When we're focused on all of the negative, we're going to feel discontent. But when we focus on what we have to be thankful, we're going to feel a lot better and a lot more at peace. Take a moment right now. Think about what it is that you're thankful for in your life. Drop us a comment below and let us know on that. So the last area that I want to talk about when it comes to living a content life is self-growth, is challenging yourself. I think that one of the things that happens with us is if we feel unhappy or discontent, that we tend to hide or maybe try coping with things that aren't super healthy in our life instead of focusing on things that are going to really help us to feel more content, because we're pushing ourselves, we're challenging ourselves, we're seeing improvements in areas of our life. So perhaps one of the most important things you could do when you feel not content in your life is to focus on challenging yourself, growing in the areas that matter to yourself, seeing improvement and feeling the enjoyment of becoming a better version of yourself. So listen, I know it's difficult for any one of us to share things about whether we feel content or discontent, but I'm curious this year, how are you feeling? And also, do you have any practical tips or ways that you help yourself live a content life? Drop a comment below, let us know. And as always, thank you for taking the time to listen, and make sure if you haven't already, subscribe and hit the bell notification. I greatly appreciate it. Take care.